Picture yourself in a dark room. A DJ is flooding the crowded dance floor with the sound of 90s Detroit techno. You move to the beat and catch a glimpse of your friend dancing in between the pulse of a strobe light. This looks like a rave, but the people aren't really there. At least, not physically. These are all avatars. The people controlling them are all at home, in their bedrooms, across the world. This is VR Chat, where a thriving underground VR rave scene has taken hold, breaking through the historic depiction of vast EDM-style festivals with huge headliners and replacing them with a truly immersive world, where creativity has no boundaries, where talented bedroom DJs get to practice to a live global audience day in, day out, where the track selection wouldn't feel out of place at Berghain or Fabric, and where freedom of personal expression transcends human boundaries. VR Chat is an online virtual social platform launched in 2017. It's a part of the metaverse, the way TikTok or Instagram are part of the internet, and it offers an endless collection of social VR experiences by giving the power of creation to its community. There are currently over 25,000 community-created worlds.
In 2018, one of the first clubs to actually exist popped up in VR Chat. But it wasn't the only one. There was another club called Dirty Dancers that also existed.
That's Kelly Guillory. She's the editor of Metaculture Mag and a regular VR raver. She joined VR Chat as a way to cope with grief when her friend passed away, immersing herself in a virtual world.
That's when the experiments in club architecture really took off, because before it was all about big American-style clubs, and then from there it became, what is a club? What are the basics that make a club what it is? Is a club just a place where you play music? Does it actually require a door in order to enter into this space? Does it need 4 walls? Does it need a place that tells you it is a club? Is a club the back of a plane? Is a club an abandoned warehouse? Is a club your friend's house? We don't know what a club is. And so because of that, a club can actually be anything in this space.
In VR Chat, this club on a plane exists, and it's called Heist. It's owned by Luff and Frills, who are both footwork and drum and bass DJs. They met through VR Chat when Luff caught Frills' set.
I was so impressed by his song selection and mixing. We became friends and hung out, and he got me back into producing footwork, and it's just been awesome.
Heist started as a jokey passion project between these two friends, riffing on the idea of creating an underground scene high above the ground. But people loved it, and Heist now puts on events every couple of weeks. They invite other DJs and producers from all around the world to come and play, who don't have to take a long-haul flight to do so.
As soon as you enter the world, you're facing the posters and the lineup here of all the other DJs and producers that have played here before. And then you're met with a very dark and mysterious small alleyway between stacks of gold bars that you need to make your way through towards where the DJ is playing. And it's usually illuminated by a lot of lighting that corresponds with the DJ's visuals and with their music. It's controlled by a VJ booth that's up in the corner, and we have a dedicated person running the visuals. We have a dedicated person running the lighting. And then once you reach the ramp, you are met by a crowd of up to 80 people who are all just dancing, having a great time, partying, and enjoying the music.
Heist is one of the estimated 50 English-speaking clubs that have cropped up over the last couple of years. You can think of the VR rave scene as a city. There's the big brick-and-mortar clubs that everyone knows, the ones you find through a friend of a friend, the ones based around drinking or sex, and the ones that pop up for one night only. You can even browse a local record store. Venues usually promote their events through Twitter or in private Discord groups, which have become important hubs for the VR rave community. There's even a rather familiar-looking VR events listing site. It was clubs like DDVR and Rizumu that paved the way for what these venues could really achieve. They built the foundations for a safe and inclusive environment, giving people a free space to dance and socialize. The pandemic saw an influx of new users, like Velotix from Loner and 2TD from Shelter, bringing with them real-life promoter experience and a new variety of sounds.
At the very start, it was still very much like standard EDM, top 40 kind of stuff. And then I guess we came in and we were like, let's like make this also about music.
One of the things that's really great about VR chat is that, or I guess just VR music in general, is it's pretty much infinite space. You know, we're not fighting for the same couple venues in a town or the same like hotspots on a Friday night in like New York City. There's infinite space to go around, so people tend to make whatever they want. Like if you want to go see like hardcore like donk type music, you can find that in here. If you want to see like breakcore, like crazy stuff, stuff that might be more difficult and challenging for audiences.
When I first started, festival music was big, dubstep was very big, trap was very big, and over time I've watched it reach more like into deeper obscurity, into subgenres that people had never even heard of before, into international genres that people were not even used to based on their actual physical location.
There's not even just a US scene, there's a scene from Asia, there's a scene from Europe. It's just 24/7 pretty much, something's happening. So I think that keeps continuing to push the culture and continuing to push the innovation and all the music taste that happens in here. And that's why you see it change so rapidly, is because it's just always on.
For Melon Slices, the ability to escape the constraints of his local music scene was a lifeline.
I live in Texas, so the taste in music here is very, I don't know, the EDM scene is not for me here where I live. So there was no space. I couldn't travel to other places, to COVID or to money or not being in the time period where this music was played. So I only found this type of music and this culture in the VR scene and very like-minded individuals that would help me out getting this kind of vision going.
Melon fell in love with the 90s drum and bass and jungle scene he discovered through VR chat. He built Dieselworks to pay homage to old school labels like Metalheads and jungle and drum and bass artists like Tim Reaper, Doc Scott and Alex Reese.
I feel like there's a kind of revival in the VR scene and the music that is being played. Like the early pioneers of drum and bass and jungle, early pioneers of the rave scene in the UK, Europe, early United States, Detroit techno, all this stuff, all the very foundational level of rave music is being heard in here.
Many clubs in the space have taken inspiration from real-life venues. Lona's grungy underground aesthetic is inspired by Melbourne's Sub Club and Mogra in Japan, whilst Dieselworks is mainly inspired by clubs in London like Fabric and Cargo. And you can tell, just looking at the brickwork arches feels familiar. There's even multiple rooms to cater to different music. Being immersed in the VR rave community encouraged Melon to start DJing himself, purchasing a controller and playing out to virtual crowds not long after. But what's it actually like to DJ in VR?
It's a challenge for a few reasons. One, you're wearing a headset and you have controllers in your hands. So there's a physical aspect where you're not seeing. It's mostly by touching and feeling where your controls are. For me, I developed a memory of my controller, my deck, so I don't usually have to look at it usually. There's software that can overlay VR applications in front of you in VR, so I can see like record box in front of me on a window, and I can see what songs are playing and everything like that. And like latency and streaming, there's actually, people have developed a very, very, very low latency streaming service, like sub 1 second, like down to milliseconds.
It's not only DJ sets that you can find here. OM3 regularly plays live sets in various venues across VR chat and is known to be constantly pushing boundaries within VR tech.
I perform with a bunch of electrons, like 7, and I DJ and kind of mix in loops and I have my VR headset on while I'm playing and I'm just looking down through the crack, and that's enough for me. It takes some practice. I developed a venue that's for showcasing live hardware. It's called Mass. It's a giant mech. It's a giant robot, basically, and the screens are set up and entangled with some wires in a way that when you have top-down shot on gear, it looks really cool in the world, and it's a cool way to present a live hardware set. There's this thing that happens, when you're playing live where you're co-creating the environment with the audience. You can hear, if you want to, as a DJ, the conversations of all the people that are within a certain radius around you. And that kind of feedback and the positivity, the openness because of this space, it's a special sort of like input tool that you don't get anywhere else, that you can't get anywhere else when you play.
The VR scene is heaving with producers, so this also gives them a great opportunity to test out new music on a live audience.
From a DJ perspective, when you're reading the room, VR versus IRL, be it in VR, the technology is still evolving, but the basic reaction is still there. For me, I can tell when a song is done because I'll literally make stuff in my studio and play it at Shelter or play it at one of the pop-ups or play it at a different club in here, and I'll read the room like I would read the room in real life.
So, what kind of technology is needed to access these worlds?
You don't need full body to come and enjoy music at virtual clubs in VR chat. You actually can join on desktop. And then there are people that are in what we call half body. They're in their headsets and they have their hand trackers. The third person, which is the more stereotypical version of a VR chat user, is the person that has full body tracking. That's going to cost you upwards to $1,000 or more than $1,000, depending on your setup.
With full body tracking, when you dance in real life, your avatar follows suit. Some people even have haptic vests, which means they can feel the bass of the music being played. If you are able to invest in the right technology, the experience can feel overwhelmingly immersive.
There will be some nights where I want to go to a place like DDVR. It's got plenty of room to dance. I like to just go and get straight in the middle of the floor and get lost under the lights, and it's just me and the music. There are times when I do actually like just vibing in the corner off to the center. Depending on the mood and the space, you may not even really feel like dancing that day. You may just want to completely absorb the music.
The customization is not limited to immersion. You are also in complete control of how your avatar looks.
If you're familiar with Club Kids, it's like a 90s New York scene of kids that would dress very out there. And it was always about expression. And a lot of what them being interviewed saying, yeah, it's because I want to stand out or I want to be different or there's no place for me here. So I'm going to dress up crazy, do what I want to feel like, and go to these clubs and have a good time. And a lot of us do that here with our avatars. We dress them up, make them flashy, express ourselves in various ways with like latex, even leather, no clothing, lots of clothing, being very bright and shiny or not being seen at all, wearing all black.
This freedom to mold your exterior appearance means many choose to experiment with their gender expression.
So one of the questions I get asked a lot is why a male presenting person outside in VR use, a female avatar inside of VR. It has a lot to do with identity. So in VR, a lot of people tend to use the gender they would like to be in real life inside of VR. So I'm gay. In VR, I prefer to be female because I can't be female IRL for most people. It's more of a perfect vision of themselves. You can see yourself moving and it translates to what you see in a mirror or you see in VR. It pulls you in, makes you feel validated, I guess, or comfortable.
No one is judging anybody on their visual or even on their just like voice expression. You can just be yourself.
Despite these benefits, it's often thought that overuse of VR may lead to unhealthy escapism and real-life social isolation. Though something to be mindful of, the appeal of these environments is often not to escape reality, but rather to help people believe that they can recreate or change their own.
I think there's definitely a lot of safe space here for people with social anxiety or with disabilities. I've talked to a few people that say that they've had the courage to go out because they've been to so many raves in VR. And I think that's really amazing that they're willing to put themselves in uncomfortable situations because of their experiences in VR and experience new things because of it.
Change happens when you get to a point where you have influence or you have like a following. It's using that following and using that influence for good. So with Shelter, like when we did our New York show, at least 50 people came up to me and were like, this is my first show ever. I didn't think I could like ever come to a show. I never thought I would have the confidence, right? So yeah, there is like that escapism, but I think it's a net positive at the end of the day, because it's introducing people to like, hey, you can be part of this. And if you're not able to be part of it in real life, there's something wrong with that and that needs to change.
Of course, not everyone is here for these reasons. Many are simply drawn by the dynamic scene and the unparalleled creativity.
I'm trans, but for a very long time. Fortunately, had a very good background story of my family side, so I was always very comfortable and in a very good environment.
May built her venue Concrete as a reflection of her home country, but with the integration of a concept previously constricted to her imagination.
I'm from Germany, so the architecture very inspires me, and I think it reflects the space a lot. It's a very brutalistic post-communism architecture, minimalistic. Since the DJ booth is on the same level as the crowd is, it's an all open space. They can go around the DJ booth. They can see everything. There's a separation and these angled tiles of the walls. So if you're standing here on the street with a high contrast, organic contrast to this like cold concrete, you can see the whole dance floor. But with the tilted walls, if you're on the dance floor, you focus on the dance floor, you can't see the space. That was one of the things I had in mind when creating this, to have a very deep visual auditory experience that's mind-blowing and not able to be achieved in real life.
Just like Concrete, Frills wanted Heist to be a space where DJ and dancer are equal.
Spent a lot of time actually looking at the design. You know, Frills was the one who came up with how these gold bars are stacked in a way that moves people to the front. The ramp is kind of a way of saying, hey, the DJ is not above the crowd.
Putting the DJ either on the ground with everybody else or even lower than everybody else sort of sends a subconscious message to people that, you know, we're not there to put them on a pedestal or anything.
The attention to detail in these worlds is impressive, with every part of the experience being considered for optimum effect.
It's an experience to get to places, some of these clubs, where you spawn in and you have to walk to it, like on the street. You know, it's about the believability, the immersion. Me and my friend go back and forth with what we call map psychology, which is like how people will travel through your map or your club and like what they'll think about, like in the physical space on a subconscious level. Like for me, going down these stairs is like you're going down into a space.
Ghost Club is one of the most renowned clubs in the VR rave community, run by Abaki in Japan. The entry mirrors elements of old school rave discovery. When you spawn in, a phone booth will appear and the phone will ring. You pick up the receiver and you're transported to an abandoned building towering over a desolate city. Somewhere inside the building, Ghost Club is being held.
Ghost Club has put so much work and have been so consistent for so long. They're undeniably the origin of like a lot of the inspiration that happens over here.
The ability to continuously build on and improve worlds means these are living, breathing spaces. Particular iterations of venues can serve as a fleeting moment in time. The creativity afforded in VR chat is limitless, but there are still other limitations for venue creators. The power required to host these avatars means that club capacity is limited to 80 people. This is great for keeping these clubs underground, but it also means that, just like sold-out events in real life, you may end up waiting a while before you can get in.
Heist has a maximum 80 capacity now. It used to be 64, and we would reach maximum capacity regularly. Thanks to the upgrades that VR Chat has done with Fizzbones recently, there's more headroom on people's PCs, so we were able to raise the cap to 80 and know that people will still have a good performance.
Even with these restrictions in place, the accomplishments of venue developers is inspiring, especially considering many are self-taught.
In reality, what we're doing is we are offering an experience that even AAA game developers don't offer. In video games, everything's sort of pre-baked. They've already done all the animations. It's all on your hard drive, right? When anything happens in the game, it's just getting you to play that animation. In here, everything is pretty much real time. Like this is not an animation, this is me moving my body. So dealing with 80 people, all of them moving however they want, all of that information, and then adding on like lighting, adding on like post-processing effects, adding on all this stuff. There's really like nowhere else you're gonna find that.
I think a lot of what drives creators in here is just the overall passion for music and learning and exciting new sounds. It's people that are wanting to push creativity.
Recently, Lona had a facelift. We redid all the inside. We completely gutted it and rebuilt the whole thing. Jonesy, my modeler, he lives here in America, so it would be him coming home from work, working all night, leaving all that work for me. I'd get home from work after he went to bed, working all night, and it was just this like rotation for like 4 weeks, 500 to 600 hours of work.
Currently, there's no in-world ecosystem. You mainly make money off donations, so it's very crowd-funded, and it's very independent, and it's very, I would say, grassroots almost, where we're not at the point where corporations have really come in, but just making money in music in general, it's become harder and harder over the years. It's very hard to not fall into the commercialization of it all.
With big tech putting huge focus into the virtual and augmented reality spaces, there's no doubt that the scene will continue to evolve and expand.
Instead of it being one big scene where everybody knows each other, it kind of like exceeded the capacity of that being a possibility, you know? This is an extremely exciting time because it's in flux, crazy in flux, and there's things that can make massive tectonic shifts in the space really quickly. It's a bit fragile, but we've all been in there just beyond intoxicated by the experience. It's not going anywhere.
Preserving the magic of these spaces in an exponentially evolving climate is not the only hurdle the scene has to overcome. Whilst there are community-enforced regulations, it's not always enough to stop people from behaving badly.
The anonymity of an avatar can be exploited.
And since virtual reality is still a fairly new technology, not every platform has solved the question of how best to protect people from it.
There are ways in which someone can harass a person in VR chat and they will never actually get reported because what they're doing is so covert that it doesn't actually cover TOS in the platform. You can have someone that is so insistent on following you around here that they will make themselves their presence. They will insist on their presence being known, whether you've blocked them or not. They will manipulate things to try and push you out of the space if you don't do what they want you to do.
Kelly is not the first to experience harassment in VR, and she won't be the last. VR Chat has a lot of work to do to figure out how to overcome this, but the closeness of the community has its advantages. Someone who is acting inappropriately by, say, following someone around or secretly recording their conversations can be booted from the club. Their name will have a black mark against it. Though internal issues like these remain a concern, one of the real challenges of VR exists externally.
The hardest part is talking to people about this kind of stuff and sort of breaking their preconceived notions on what it is. Even like booking real life artists, like artists outside VR, getting them to come in, just showing them that like, hey, this is actually good. Like this is actually worth you coming and doing. This isn't like metaverse. This isn't like Decryptoland. This isn't just some like shitty cop-out project. We want to book you because we're fans of you. We want to book you because we think you're going to love this as much as we love it.
You have to understand that the term metaverse was coined by a company to sell something to you. So I feel like you just need to focus on like what you want out of things. Like, does VR interest you at all? If not, like it makes you sick. You think it looks corny. You don't like it. That's totally fine. Like it might not be for you, but if you're like a small independent artist, you can give this a chance. If you're open-minded to it, in return, you could gain that creative outlet. Focus on the creativity and be open-minded because it's new platforms.
I think what we're making is cool enough now that we need to like promote it as like an art project. But it's always going to be weird. And that's what the real club scene is. Almost all dance music came from like LGBTQ crowd, like African American crowd, all that kind of stuff. Like it's always been these niche crowds that created the foundation of what you like. So that's definitely how it is in here as well.
This video is just a brief introduction to VR Chat's raving community. The creativity, the relationships, the venues, and the music all run much deeper than what can be covered in one film.
If you join and you try to dip your toes into the space based off somebody that you see in some of these videos, just understand that is literally the tip of the iceberg. In reality, there's hundreds of people pushing the culture within this space. Muzz with his Sanctum, DDVR, Resumu, Plantasia, there's so many.
I'm just one artist out of a whole kaleidoscopic array of incredibly talented, beautiful people in here that are pushing the boundaries of what it means to present music and art in a collaborative and social context on the frontiers of technology.
Virtual clubbing is not about to replace real life, but it was never meant to in the first place.
This is set to remain a space for music lovers to convene and discover,
where limitless creativity and dedication can overcome the many financial and personal barriers that hamper the real-life clubbing experience. Core values like community care and self-expression are still at the forefront of the raving ethos, whether it's online or offline. And as more people don their own headsets to immerse themselves in this expanding world, who knows what the future holds.
The future is crazy. The future is bright. Reality and the virtual space. The crossover is coming together very fast, very quickly, and soon there's gonna be mind-blowing experiences. Even when you're in the real space, seeing stuff that's probably never been possible before. Very excited, bright future for the music scene.